one day somebody does something unspeakable to someone else, to someone you hardly knew, and you do something about it, because you can.
This story is brought to us from the Washington Post. Alex Lamori had just moved into a new apartment this February. The 25-year-old man was excited to join Patuxent Commons, a new housing community in Maryland structured for residents with autism or other disabilities. The apartment also moved him closer to his mother and his stepdad, said Ami Nyberger, a close friend of the family. On the morning of February 28th, just as he always did, Lamori texted his mom an inspirational quote, Nyberger said. It was, "Life is too short to be mad at everyone, so I'm nice to almost everyone instead." Hours later, his mother received a frightening phone call that no mother wants to get from her son. He told her he was in suicidal crises and had called the police for a wellness check. Part of a safety plan he had in place. His mother called a suicide hotline and was patched through to Howard County Police, telling them he was autistic and at risk of harming himself. The officers who responded to Lamori's call early on March 1st found him outside the apartment building holding a knife, said police. 2 of the officers at the scene had undergone crisis intervention training for handling such incidents, Howard County Police said. When Lamori didn't drop the knife after repeated commands, state officials said, 3 officers shot him as he approached them, but they had this crisis training. He died at the scene. While the Maryland Attorney General's office investigates the shooting, Lamori's family and advocates say they want answers and accountability. Of course they do. They said every parent of a child with autism knows this is their worst nightmare, said Jill Harrington, his mother, in a statement shared by the friend Nyberger. She said Alex was in crises and called for help, and first responders must be better trained to prevent tragic outcomes instead of contributing to them. Well, they said they were trained, apparently. Those who knew Lamori said he regularly used his voice to advocate and offer support for other autistic people. He spoke on podcasts and gave interviews and presentations as an advisory board member for the Autism and Grief Project, an effort from the Hospice Foundation of America for autistic adults who are dealing with loss, Foundation President Amy Tucci said in a statement. Now, Lamori often teamed up with his mother, a licensed therapist, who specializes in grief counseling. Lamori shared how his personal experience, including the deaths of his father and grandparents, could help others. Said sometimes people will, a lot of the times, try and use techniques that work for regular people, said Lamori in a video. He said, but that doesn't always work with autistic people who are grieving, he said. Tucci said the foundation loved working with Alex. His intelligence and kind manner left a lasting impression on all of us. In a written Q&A with Autism Speaks, a national advocacy organization, Lamori said he liked to write action and horror stories inspired by Iron Man and Captain America. He also detailed his struggles after being formally diagnosed with autism at 13, including times he was hospitalized after a severe mental health crisis. Being autistic, Lamori said, I hear things, see things, and feel things that other people don't, both in a good way and in a bad way. Still, he said, autism makes me unique, and it's helped me meet a lot of the people I care about, said Lamori. Lamori earned an associate's degree from the University of Maryland Global Campus. He also wanted to pursue either a bachelor's degree or a certificate in IT, said Nyberger. Said Alex was a kind, loving, and enthusiastic person, his family said in a statement, and the light of his doting big sister's eyes and the best friend to his stepfather, his siblings, his uncles, his cousins, and so many others. They also noted that the family had ties to law enforcement and the military. Lamori was dedicated to keeping himself healthy and stable, said his family. If the circumstances required, He had a safety plan and knew to call others for help, but he called the wrong others. Lamoury had been living on his own for 4 years before moving to the Patuxent Commons complex. Patuxent Commons opened in November in Columbia, Maryland, about 26 miles from Washington, D.C. The complex was designed to be a national model for inclusive living and built with accessibility in mind, said Katie Collins Erkey, the executive director of the ARC of Howard County, a disability rights organization. In addition to serving people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, the apartment complex accommodates older adults and families with subsidized units. It also holds events to encourage community engagement, said Collins Erkey. Lamoury attended the ribbon cutting for the complex in the fall after being accepted via a lottery to get in, said Nyberger. He had been at the apartment for 3 days before his death. She said it was created for Alex and for people like Alex, said Collins Erkey. She said that's what makes it so heartbreaking. Now they're saying police recovered a knife. The officers who fired their weapons, Joel Rodriguez, a 2-year veteran, Cody Bostick, a 6-year veteran, and Joseph Rebow, a 10-year veteran, are on standard administrative leave, according to the police department. Bostick declined to comment when reached by phone. Efforts to reach Rodriguez and Rebow were unsuccessful. A union representing Howard County police officers did not respond to a request for comment. As part of its investigation, the Maryland Attorney General's office will review anything captured on the officers' body cameras. The footage could be released within 20 business days of the shooting, according to the office. Now, in recent years, Maryland has embraced more training for officers on how to better interact with people with disabilities, changes sparked in part by the police killing of a man with Down syndrome in Frederick County in 2013. Well, obviously the training's not working. Leanne McKingsley, Senior Director of Disability and Justice Initiatives at the ARC of the United States, said officers are often trained to take control of a situation. But she said that can backfire when it comes to someone with disabilities who may not even understand what's going on. McKingsley acknowledged that officers tend to get more training on the use of tactical skills, which can lead to responding with lethal force during a crisis, rather than verbal de-escalation skills. Well, they have no de-escalation skills. We have to make sure there's a balance, she said. Howard County Police said 2 of the officers in the March 1st shooting were trained to be members of the department's crisis intervention team, while 1 was a specially trained negotiator. It all failed. About 80% of the department's officers have received the 40-hour training that specifically teaches how to more effectively and safely interact with people with mental health issues, said the agency. Howard Police also partner with the Grassroots Crisis Intervention Center and Humanum to staff 2 mobile crises teams in which mental health professionals respond with officers to incidents of longer duration. And then it goes down a little bit farther from there. But, yeah, it's kind of lengthy. I gave you a whole bunch there. The bottom line here is, look, these guys were supposed to be trained in crisis intervention, especially with people with disabilities. They were trained in it. Well, he approached them with a knife. Yeah, I saw in Australia a video where a guy was swinging a knife and spinning and running at officers. 5 cops in Australia. You know what they did? They dodged the guy successfully until they were able to knock the knife out of his hand with a baton. And when the knife skidded across the concrete or the asphalt, they tackled him and took him alive. Why can't we do that in the United States? Oh, because cops are trained to shoot you. I mean, it's really true. I'm not trying to badmouth cops. They're trained. If you feel scared, shoot. That's why they shoot so many dogs that come up with their tails wagging. In Australia, they're trained to take people alive. In The United States, they're trained, if you're scared, shoot. I don't know. I want to hear from you.